Welcome to the Hump Day performance of the Carol Spaziani 2014 Intellectual Freedom Festival. We're lucky today because Carol is with us and she's in the audience. We're going live on Channel 10. For the rest of the week, we have some really good programs that are going to be happening. Tonight, there is a program with Carol Tilley, who is the Assistant Professor of Library and Information Sciences at the University of Illinois. She's going to be talking about her studies on comic book censorship. Tomorrow, if you have little kids or you're interested in coming down, we're going to do a banned book story hour. So they'll be reading books that have been banned in story hour. There'll be a teen program tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow morning, also, Professor Tilley will be here to meet with students and faculty at the university who are going to come in and they're going to talk about the comic book censorship. Tomorrow night, we have a program, a documentary. Academy Award-winning documentarian Barbara Kopel did a documentary about the Dixie Chicks. It's called Shut Up and Sing. And it's a really good documentary about what happened to this very successful country music group after their lead singer made some disparaging comments about President Bush in England in 2003. In Friday morning, and there's still some sign-up time if you want to go to the computer lab, our own Jennifer Eilers will be teaching a class called Social Media Safety, Protecting Your Privacy, about safety issues on the computer. It looks like it's going to be a really good class, and there is registration left for that. And on Friday night, we're going to do a presentation on censorship by Maureen Freely, who is an American journalist, author, and lecturer at the University of Warwick in England. And she'll be talking about intellectual freedom in terms of international issues. So we've got a lot of stuff coming up for the rest of the week. We hope that all of you can join us. If you're watching on the channel, be sure and come down. We're going to have some really fun stuff to do. I'm Terry Byers. I'm a member of the Intellectual Freedom Festival Committee. I think this is my 10th program with IFF. So again, this year we're going to be working with the Reading Aloud program from the Johnson County, Iowa City Senior Center. Very happy to have them on board for IFF and always fun to work with you guys. Today we're going to talk about Edgar Allan Poe. And Poe, while he is best known for his short stories and his longer works, he wanted to be known for his poetry. He really liked being known as a poet. And while Poe's poetry, some feel juvenile, simplistic, it's lasted over the years. Poe died in 1849, so there's a kind of a reappraisal of Poe over the years that's happened. When he first died, a lot of the critics, and what happened, and this is what's interesting about the whole Poe situation, is that his peers are the ones that kind of censored him. They kind of said, they dismissed him after he died, saying that his poetry was not really, it was attributed more to his personality than it was to any kind of artistic flair. And people over the years, such as Henry James and Huxley and T.S. Eliot, also dismissed Poe as being not quite a poet, a great short story writer, but not quite a poet. And what happens with that is when you have people who are respected within a field downgrading another person within the field, there's a censorship that happens. And that's kind of what happened with Poe in the artistic community. George Bernard Shaw and William Carlos Williams, however, felt that Poe was overlooked as a poet, and both cited him as, William Carlos Williams cited him as an influence, even though if you read Williams, you see Poe's an influence. But the reason that he felt he should be validated is that Poe wrote about what was going on in the society, not flowers and trees and beautiful wordiness. He was actually talking about inner life, and inner life sometimes is more interesting as you look at it in history. Poe was popularized again in the 1950s because of a bunch of B-grade movies that Vincent Price starred in. But that, of course, led to a lot of people looking over Poe, and again, especially as we've learned over the years in banning, it's often done at the school level. Poe was banned from schools in the 1950s and 60s because of the content of some of his poems. It's misunderstood, but again, people tend to look at stuff and see it only in the way that their living at that time instead of looking over the historic context. H. Marshall McLuhan talked in the 1960s about the realism of Poe and how we should celebrate Poe in the sense of being a poet in terms of what he wrote. Today, Reading Aloud is going to select several of Poe's poems. I hope that you all enjoy them, and I hope that it spurs kind of an interest in looking up Poe and reading about him as a person, because he's very fascinating as a literary character and a literary person. And so I'll leave it to the Reading Aloud group, but thank you so much for coming today.
Reading Aloud from the Iowa City Senior Center is happy and proud to be part of the Intellectual Freedom Festival for the second year. When Terry suggested that we read Poe, we were a little surprised, but when we got into it, we found that the poems are fun to read, and I hope that you will have that fun too. The noted literary critic Harold Bloom included Poe in his anthology Best Poems of the English Language, but he wrote about Poe. Poe is a bad poet, a poor critic, and a dreadful prose stylist. He is also inescapable. No other American writer is so widely read, both domestically and abroad. To dream everyone's nightmare has to be genius, which cannot be denied Poe. And for him being inescapable at the current time, there's an exhibit in New York City called Evermore, The Persistence of Poe. That's a collection of first editions and manuscripts and all kinds of other material. So let me introduce the readers from over there: Michael Chan, Kathy Mitchell, Jim Curry, Harry Malone, Johnny Ellsworth, Betty Norbeck, Pat Huff, and Mary Gutman. And I'm Ina Lowenberg. And we're going to begin with perhaps the most famous poem, The Raven, and three of us are going to share the reading of it. And the third person is Jim, and we're going to let you play a part in this reading. When we get to a certain part, he will raise his hand or finger, and you will join in the very famous refrain. So here we go. The Raven. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently, my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, or "Madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, Long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortals ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, Lenore. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, Lenore. Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, something louder than before. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more.
Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not an instant stopped, or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's plutonium shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answers little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on that placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further then he uttered, not a feather then he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before, on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled in the stillness, broken by reply, so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirge of his hope the melancholy burden bore of never, nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my sad soul into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of the bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore.
This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, ah, nevermore. Then, methought, the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff Oh, quaff this kind of penthe, and forget this lost ice, Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, yet all undaunted, in this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.
Annabel Lee. It was many and many a year ago in this kingdom by the sea that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden, she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child, and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea, but we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged savors of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of a cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we, and neither the angels in heaven nor the demons down in the sea can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so, all night tide, I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in the sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea.
The city in the sea. Lo, death has reared himself a throne in a strange city lying alone, far down within the dim west, where the good and the bad and the worst and the best have gone to their eternal rest. There shrines and palaces and towers, time-eaten towers that tremble not, resemble nothing that is ours. Around, by lifting winds forgot, resignedly beneath the sky, the melancholy waters lie.
No rays from the holy heaven come down on the long night time of that town, but the light from out the lurid sea streams up the turrets silently, gleams up the pinnacles far and free, up domes, up spires, up kingly halls, up fanes, up Babylon like walls, up shadowy, long-forgotten bowers of sculptured ivy and stone flowers, up many and many a marvelous shrine whose wreathed friezes intertwine the vial, the violet, and the vine. Resignedly beneath the sky, the melancholy waters lie. So blend the turrets and shadows there, that all seem pendulous in air. While from a proud tower in the town, death looks gigantically down.
Their open fanes and gaping graves yawn level with the luminous waves, but not the riches there that lie in each idol's diamond eye, not the gaily jeweled dead tempt the waters from their bed, for no ripples curl, alas, along that wilderness of glass. No swellings tell that winds may be upon some far-off happier sea. No heavings hint that winds have been on seas less hideously serene. But lo, a stir is in the air, the wave, there is a movement there, as if the towers had thrust aside in slightly sinking the dull tide, as if their tops have feebly given a void within the filmy heaven. The waves have now a redder glow, the hours are breathing faint and low, and when amid no earthly moans, down, down that town shall settle hence, hell, rising from 1,000 thrones, shall do it reverence.
Israfel. In heaven a spirit doth dwell, whose heartstrings are a lute. None sing so wildly well as the angel Israfel. And the giddy stars, so legends tell, ceasing their hymns, attend the spell of his voice, all mute. Tottering above, in her highest noon, the enamored moon blushes with love, while to listen, the leven with the rapid Pleiads even, which were 7, pauses in heaven. And they say, the starry choir and other listening things, that Israfeli's fire is owing to that lyre, by which he sits and sings, the trembling living wire of those unusual strings. But the skies that angel trod, where deep thoughts are a duty, where love's a grown-up God, where the hoary glances are imbued with all the beauty which we worship in a star. Therefore, thou art not wrong, Israfeli, who despisest an unimpassioned song. To thee the laurels belong, best bard, because the wisest merrily live and long. The ecstasies above with thy burning measures suit, thy grief, thy joy, thy hate, thy love. with the fervor of thy lute. Well may the stars be mute. Yes, heaven is thine, but this is a world of sweets and sours. Our flowers are merely flowers, and the shadow of thy perfect bliss is the sunshine of ours. If I could dwell where Israfel hath dwelt, and he where I, he might not sing so wildly well a mortal melody, while a bolder note than this might swell from my lyre within the sky.
To Helen. Helen, thy beauty is to me like those Nicean barks of yore that gently, or a perfumed sea, the weary, way-worn wanderer bore to his own native shore. On desperate seas long wont to roam, thy hyacinth hair, thy classic face, thy naiad airs have brought me home to the glory that was Greece and the grandeur that was Rome. Lo, in yon brilliant window niche, how statue-like I see thee stand, the agate lamp within thy hand. Ah, Psyche, from the regions which are Holy Land.
Sonnet to Science. Science, true daughter of old time thou art, who alterest all things with thy peering eyes. Why preyest thou upon the poet's heart, vulture, whose wings are dull realities? How should he love thee, or how deem thee wise, who wouldst not leave him in his wandering to seek for treasure in the jeweled skies? Albeit he soared with undaunted wing, hast thou not dragged Diana from her car, and driven the Hamadryad from the wood to seek a shelter in some happier star? Hast thou not torn the Naiad from her flood, the elfin from the green grass, and from me, the summer dream beneath the tamarind tree?
The Conqueror Worm. Lo, 'tis a gala night within the lonesome latter years. An angel throng, bewinged, bedight in veils, and drowned in tears, sit in a theater to see a play of hopes and fears, while the orchestra beeves fitfully the music of the spheres. Mimes in the form of God on high mutter and mumble low, and hither and thither fly, mere puppets they, who come and go at bidding of vast, formless things that shift the scenery to and fro, flapping from out their condor wings, invisible woe. That motley drama, oh, be sure it shall not be forgot, with its phantom chase forevermore by a crowd that sees it not, through a circle that ever returneth into the self-same spot, and much of madness and more of sin, and horror, the soul of the plot. But sure, amid the mimic rout, a crawling shape intrude, a blood-red thing that rise from out the cynic solitude. It writhes with mortal pangs, the mimes become its food. and seraphs sob at vermin fangs in human gore imbued. Out, out are the lights, out all, and over each quivering form the curtain, a funeral pall, comes down with the rush of a storm. While the angels, all pallid and wine, uprising, unveiling, affirm that the play is the tragedy, man, and his hero, the conqueror worm.
Hear the sledges with the bells, silver bells. What a world of merriment their melody foretells. How they tinkle, tinkle, tinkle in the icy air of night, while the stars that oversprinkle all the heaven seem to twinkle with the crystalline delight, keeping time, 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 in a sort of runic rhyme to the tintinnabulation that so musically wells from the bells, 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 from the jingling and the tinkling of the bells. Hear the mellow wedding bells, golden bells. What a world of happiness their harmony foretells. Through the balmy air of night, how they ring out their delight from the molten golden tones, notes, and all in a tune. What a liquid ditty float to the turtle-dove that listens while she gloats on the moon. Oh, from out the sounding cells, what a gush of euphony voluminously wells. How it swells, how it dwells on the future, how it tells of the rapture that impels to the swinging and the ringing of the bells, 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 of the bells, 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 to the rhyming and the chiming of the bells.
Hear the loud alarum bells, brazen bells. What a tale of terror now their turbulency tells. In the startled ear of night, how they scream out their affright. Too much horrified to speak, they can only shriek, shriek out of tune. In a clamorous appealing to the mercy of the fire, in a mad expostulation with the deaf and frantic fire, leaping higher, higher, higher with a desperate desire and a resolute endeavor now to sit or never by the side of the pale-faced moon. Oh, the bells, 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 what a tale their terror tells of despair. How they clang and clash and roar, what a horror they outpour on the bosom of the palpitating air. Yet the ear it fully knows by the twanging and the clanging how the danger ebbs and flows. Yet the ear distinctly tells in the jangling and the wrangling how the danger sinks and swells by the sinking or the swelling in the anger of the bells, of the bells, of the bells, 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 in the clamor and the clangor of the bells.
Hear the tolling of the bells, iron bells. What a world of solemn thought their monody compels. In the silence of the night, how we shiver with affright at the melancholy menace of their tone. For every sound that floats from the rust within their throats is a groan, and the people, ah, the people, they that dwell up in the steeple all alone, and who tolling, 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 in that muffled monotone, feel a glory in so rolling up on the human heart of stone. They are neither man nor woman. They are neither brute nor human. They are ghouls. And their king it is who tolls, and he rolls, 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 a paean from the bells, and his merry bosom swells with the paean of the bells, and he dances and he yells, keeping time, 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 in a sort of rhythmic rhyme to the paean of the bells, keeping time, 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 in a sort of runic rhyme to the throbbing of the bells, 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 to the sobbing of the bells, keeping time, 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 as he knells, knells, knells in a happy runic rhyme to the rolling of the bells, 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 to the tolling of the bells, 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 to the moaning and the groaning of the bells.
Well, I'm truly sorry we don't have a bell to tell you that this is the end of the program. Thank you very much for coming.